Hi, I'm Griff Hamlin. Welcome and thanks for joining me today. In today's video, we are going to talk about undoubtedly one of the most confusing elements to learning how to improve your blues soloing, and that is the idea of combining the major and the minor blues sounds together. Now, you may know there are quite a few different ways to approach this, and because of the fact that we tend to learn our blues scales on the guitar in a sort of box format or a compartmentalized format, there's all kinds of tricks out there, and the one that always comes to mind is the 3 frets down rule, which says that, like, if I take box 1 and I move it down 3 frets, I've changed it to the major sound. Well, that is in essence true because, for example, A minor or A major, and F sharp minor are in fact the same notes. We're playing off the relative keys there. The problem is that there's a little bit of extra mental gymnastics that goes on, and here's why. Let's say that you are playing in A minor and you need A major, so you slide down. Well, when you play your boxes down there, or your licks, what you're really doing is playing F sharp minor. And so you're not thinking anymore about the A's. The A is what's important. You're in the key of A. So by playing F sharp minor, there's this extra mental step of, oh yeah, wait a minute, I'm in A. I got to pay attention to A. And so what ends up happening is your licks tend to start and end on F sharps or revolve around F sharps. And so getting something that sounds right as opposed to not wrong, which is something I've talked about before, it's really more luck than plan. So in today's video, I want to try and help you out with that by showing you how to use root notes as what I call pivot points. And this is something that I've been doing a lot, and it works very, very well for me, and it also, of course, works well for my students. So I want to share it with you today, and then a little bit later on I'll show you where you can actually get a whole bunch of licks and other ideas that kind of go along with this methodology, if you will. So if we look at, let's say let's go to the key of G, because it's going to lay a little bit better when we get up to the high end, right? So we all learn, here's a G, and we all learn box 1 in the key of G, right? Well, that's G minor. And if we want the major sound there, what I teach in Blues Guitar Unleashed is to use this same root note, and notice that it's a root note, that's important, but put box 2 there. Okay, and again, it revolves around the root, and that's an important element of what we're going to talk about today, is revolving around the root note. Why the root note? Well, the root note's really important because if you look at a G minor blues scale and a G major blues scale, the root is the most important note that they have in common. Okay, so that's, and you may have heard me talk before about the most important notes being the 3rd and the 7th. Well, the major and the minor blues sounds don't have the 3rd and the 7th in common. That's what makes them different. That's what makes the major sound major and the minor sound minor, is the most important notes are different. Okay, they do share a 5th, but that's not as important. The root is the most important note that is available in both sounds. So keep that in mind. That's why we're basing things around the roots, and that's really important. Okay, so we have a minor sound, box 1, major sound, box 2, right? Now, if you can't see, I did go through the 3 frets down rule. If I took box 1 and went down 3 frets, it would be E. And if I played box 1 in E, box 2 would naturally fall on G. That's just the way the boxes lay out. Okay, now I could use this root here as well. So if I were to play box 1 from here, and then I could switch over to box 2 from here, thing. Or this root here. There's the major. There's the minor. Now, granted, I'm playing fairly quickly, through the patterns because I'm assuming that you already have some fundamental familiarity with these patterns, okay? If you don't, this video is probably a little beyond your scope anyway, so that's probably, this is for a later time. But assuming that you do know the 5 boxes and that you are struggling with combining the major and minor sounds together, you're in the right place. So let's talk a little bit more about this though. Notice that it's pretty easy to handle this boxes 1 and 2 because, well, it's, right here we have the root where we typically start a box. What if, let's say we were playing in G minor, but we were playing in box 2. There's a G. This isn't a G. Okay, so we're now starting a pattern not on the root note, and that's kind of important because to play the major sound in this general area is actually box 3. But it doesn't start on the same note. It doesn't start on the 6th fret, it starts on the 5th fret because that's where box 3 would fall in the key of G. That's major. That's minor. And if I go up from this root, that's minor, and that's major, right? Or from this root, there's minor, there's major. So notice that we're in the same general ballpark now, but we're not starting on the same note anymore because we're not starting on a root. And that's a point that confuses a whole lot of people. They see that, with the box 1 and 2 going from major to minor, you start and end on the same note. Well, that's because it's a root. It's a nice coincidence. It's a nice convenience. But it's the only time that happens. Okay, so what if we kept going? So we did box 2 in the minor. What if we did box 3 in the minor? Right? Okay, well notice again, I'm not starting on a G. I don't come to a G until I get to here. So where would the major sound be here? Starting down here on the 7th fret, not the 8th. And there's box 4. So from this root note, I have a major sound there, but a minor sound there. Okay, or from this root note, there's my minor, there's my major. Okay, so you can see I'm kind of playing around back and forth just to sort of demonstrate that difference. And it's not that I want you to go learn those licks. That's not what this is about. Mostly it's about you taking some time to pick a root note and kind of noodle around with it the way I'm doing it. You just gotta kind of get comfortable with the sounds and how they're made. Okay, let's look at so that was box 3, right? So what if we go to box 4? So now we're G minor, right, from the 10th fret. Okay, well, box 5 would be the major sound. Now, it does happen to start on the same fret because this is the 5th. But now it's box 5. Right, so I tend to use that 10th fret on the 5th string. go from this root here, right? So here's another root at the 12th fret of the 3rd string. I can go major from here. Or minor. Okay. Now, one of the things that never ceases to amaze me when I'm sitting in a lesson with somebody is I'll say, you know, and usually I'll do this to somebody who knows the box is cold. Like I can say, play box 3, and bang, they just play box 3. And then I'll say, all right, play box 3 from the 12th fret of the 4th string. And all of a sudden, you know, this sort of glazed look comes over, and it's like they've never seen that box before, okay? This is one of those, what I call mental gymnastics that you want to put yourself through. And so it's my guess that if you try to do what I just did, namely taking the minor sound and starting from here, the G, the 10th fret on the 5th string, and playing it that way, or starting from this G, the 12th fret on the 3rd string, and likewise the major sound, box 5, it's my guess that when you try to do that, you're going to feel pretty confused pretty quickly because you simply aren't used to looking at the box that way, okay? So that's an important thing to practice on. Anytime you find something that is like, oh wow, I can't see it when I look at it this way. Okay, well then you need to work on that. That's kind of one of those big spotlights on a problem that needs to be solved. So it's always good when you run across those. If you realize you're like, hey, wow, when I try to look at that box from this angle, I can't see it on the fretboard. I don't know where to go. Well, then you need to work on that one. That's the way it needs to happen. You know, whether it's you work it out slowly or you write it down, you know, whatever you got to do to make it so that you can do that, you can see it when you look at it that way. That's really important. Okay, let's finish out. We've done most of the sounds now. We're up to actually box 5 in the minor sound, so we're almost coming back around. Right, so that starts on the F, the 13th fret, but there is a root close by. Now the major sound will be down here, because it'll be box 1. Okay, so again, if I use that 15th fret root, then it sounds major, right? If I use that and I play the box 5, it's minor. If I use this root here, again, that 12th fret, I can make it minor with box 5 or major with box 1. And of course I got the high root, I can make it minor with box 5 or major with box 1. So I hope that makes some sense to you. And you know, if you, like I say, if you already have the 5 boxes really under your fingers, hopefully this sheds a little light on the fact that it's really important to be able to play them from root to root to root to root and be able to see all the different roots within each pattern, because that's what you can use as those anchor points or pivot points to change between the sounds. And if you are already very comfortable with those 5 boxes, and with the root notes, finding the root notes around and everything, what we've just gone over may really shed a light on a lot of things for you and may make this much, much easier. If, however, you feel like you'd like a little bit more, I did just recently finish up actually a course on a little bit more about how to do this. It's called Major Minor Blues Shapes. And what we do is exactly what I did in this video, just kind of spread out quite a bit more. We go through each of the pairs in each of the 5 regions. We go through the pair of boxes that goes there. would basically do the exercise I just showed you, but of course I slow it down, break it down a little bit on how we go up and back, starting from each of the root notes, whether there be 2 or 3. And then I have an entire 24 bar solo that stays in that particular area, so that all of the licks in that area you will know come from just that pair of licks. And of course, after the solo, I'll break it down, and in each of the breakdowns, I'll show you which root note I'm thinking about and how I'm making those transitions, in hopes that then you can take that same information when you're doing a solo, and you'll know what root note to focus on, and you'll know how to switch back and forth between the two sounds as you need to. Now, one other important element for those of you that'll remember another course I did quite a while back called the Slow Blues Supplement. That one was all based around a slow blues, and for a variety of reasons is fairly technically challenging. In order to kind of not have the technique be an issue, I've done this more along the 5 Easy Blues Solos ideal, which is nothing is faster than an eighth note, and it's a shuffle. It's the same sort of G shuffle for all 5. So you get used to seeing and comparing. It's not like it's radically different tempos or keys or anything like that. It's very consistent from solo to solo to solo, so that you can know, when you're in a region, you're not having to deal with, okay, this is a different time signature, this is a different key signature, anything like that. It's consistent from solo to solo to solo to solo, so that you can see very plainly how these major and minor sounds interact, how you can change from one to the other. There are some licks where it's like all minor until the very end, and then it'll change to major because that's where the chord changes. There are some that will actually flow through all the way from a 1 through a 4 and back to 1. There's a huge variety of licks in there, specifically designed to handle these challenges of switching between the major and the minor sounds, and do it in a way that's not going to be super technically challenging. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, I'll leave a link below this video. Hope you'll check it out. And otherwise, I hope you've learned something from this video and enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed making it for you. And I will see you soon.